Okay, welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. Today we're going to take a look at the traffic control activities, although, as we mentioned a little while ago, this is also Bubble Day. It's unofficial Bubble Day by the declaration of Gerald Simonson. So I'm just going to wish you some bubbles. And thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island for sponsoring Something to Talk About. To find out more about their community up on Rolling Bay, call 206-594-1010. You can even get a free lunch. Ask Celia and Jamie to invite you to the bar and grill up there. They have day stay and respite care programs, and the fieldstonecommunities.com website will tell you more. Also, we always like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people, the people of the clear salt water, who have been living on the Salish Sea since time immemorial. We are continuing to learn from them, and we are grateful for their stewardship of these lands and waters. So what I know about the traffic is that it is not solved at 305 and Winslow Way yet. But I do know that it looks like the city and the state and the Washington State ferries are all working together to try to figure out what they can do to improve the situation there. Now, one of the biggest changes I think that happened was the dedication of the middle lane for the Eagle Harbor condominiums. And I'm guessing, Flora, you're on here, you live there. I'm guessing that having a dedicated light helps somewhat to make sure you can get in, out of it, off the street. Is that true?
I can't speak for anyone but myself. I haven't heard any complaints from other residents. In my point of view, I think it's working very well. Particularly on days when the ferry traffic is backed up in that right lane and we wanna turn right onto Harborview Drive and bypass that traffic. And there's a separate traffic light for us. Previously, it was always a little like taking your life in your hands to go in that left lane and try and turn in front of the ferry traffic because they assumed you were trying to cut in line. But now it's much more regulated with the traffic lights, so I feel really safe in going down there and taking the right turn into Harborview Drive and haven't had any problem with that.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the biggest win of this thing because there's still a lot of confusion at Winslow Way and 305. I see people continuing to go into the right lane, which is supposed to be ferry load only, so it would only be straight through the intersection. But people are used to being in the right lane to take that right turn, and that doesn't work. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be in the middle or the left lane of 305 and wait for the light that has lights that go in both directions to tell you where to go. Sometimes when the folks in the right lane see those lights that clearly have both a green and an arrow, they'll think it's time for them to go. So you do have some risk of bumper cars there. The other thing is, of course, the challenge that I think started this whole thing, which was the right turn off of Winslow Way into the ferry line, cutting off all the people who are backed up up to high school even or beyond, has not appreciably changed. People still try to do that at any time. I'm going to share some pictures that I have taken of the situation. I did ask WDOT, Department of Transportation folks, and the ferry and the city if they would be willing to come. Turns out that for this meeting, none of them were available, but they did not foreclose the idea of meeting with us in the future. And as the process continues, which I think it's going to do for a while, I'm happy to continue to ask them to come back and help us out. That said, I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of stuff to share today, but I will share what I have. So when you come up to the turn signal on Winslow Way, you see the barricades are now gone. There's still those right turn arrows. which is a little confusing. And the only sign that we have is no right turn to ferry. So I take that to mean that the right turn lane is still available for buses or for people who are going to Eagle Harbor condominiums. They have to cross with the green light into the left lane. But I don't think this sign up here in the upper right-hand corner that's over the turn light is going to really affect anything. I can't imagine anybody will even see that. And this is the right turn lane coming down 305 that says do not take a right turn from the ferry lane. Ideally, people would read that, but apparently they're not. And this is the way that it looks when you have, if you're in the center lane waiting to turn, it says no turn on red, which makes a lot of sense. And that this arrow pointing forward is supposed to be people only going straight to the ferry. And that people who are going to the condominiums or the bus route, or they're going to park or go to the drop off a passenger, they either go left or right while these lights in the middle are green. And the green light comes on as well as an arrow. So you would, I mean, it's there. It just takes a little bit of decoding. And of course, it isn't the way it's been. So there might be some feedback from the traffic folks that it's just going to take a little while. But I'm thinking that this no right turn to ferry sign is really going to continue to bedevil us for a while. Peter Corliss of the city says that with Washington State Department of Transportation's recent update, the southbound 305 lane remains restricted. They've installed a permanent no turn to ferry signs that apply to eastbound travelers on Winslow Way. That is because the restriction is permanent. So those barricades were being put up and taken down in theory because sometimes you could take a right turn to the ferry, but now they're saying you should not ever. Although, I mean, anybody who drives through town can see that that isn't really something that happens very often. The other thing that I learned from Shannon Hayes and Peter is that the state is hiring a private traffic control those traffic control officers, to work the intersection in July every day of the week except Wednesday. So for the next month, we will have a traffic controller out there helping to try to train us on how to use this intersection. And then according to Shannon, they will reassess toward the end of July to see about August.
Why not
So
Wednesday?
I'm guessing they don't have the staffing capability.
Okay.
I mean, the Washington State Ferries is paying that person to be out there and direct traffic. And it definitely works better when they're there. So I don't know what my take is that it looks like the folks who are living at Eagle Harbor condominiums are have seen an improvement in trying to get to their apartments, their condominiums, without having to play chicken with the folks who think they're headed for the ferry. But beyond that, I don't think that these new signs have as yet made any appreciable difference in safety or in avoiding line cutting.
So I'm a little bit confused. So if you're going south, and you're in the right-hand lane, and you're trying to get on the ferry, I understand that. That goes all the way down. What if I am on the right? How if I'm approaching that area there, what lane do I get into to go into Eagle Harbor condos?
You would be in the left lane. So you can see that this sign here has right, left, and straight. Basically, you can go any direction from the center lane or the left lane heading southbound. You can only go straight through the intersection in theory if you're in the right lane. You cannot go right or left. So if you're going to Eagle Harbor condos or you're going to the ferry passenger drop-off, or you're going to Town and Country in downtown Winslow Way, you should be in the left lane. And then when the light turns, you'll see, I don't have a picture of this, but these two red lights become green lights, and there are arrows pointing in each of the two directions. So you can go straight, left, or right. But if you're going straight in that lane, it's for non-ferry traffic only. So you
Gotcha.
might be going down to the, you might be a bus heading to the pickup, you might be a resident, or you might be, I guess, going to the,
Highlight.
yeah, Highlight, the restaurant down there. But it's not I mean, it's not, people aren't getting it right away. Or, and sometimes I obviously think people aren't getting it because they really don't want to get it. It's like they don't want to have to figure out how to go all the way up to High School Road just to get on the ferry. So the news today in this very brief presentation is we're going to get a little support from an actual human being for July. And during that time, I think there'll be some assessment about whether there are any other guidelines people might be able to use to get people to do what they're supposed to do.
It'll be interesting to see where this person stands.
Which person?
The
Oh,
officer.
the
They usually,
officer.
they usually stand between the two lanes, or sometimes where those yellow posts are. There's usually somebody there on Sundays and
They stand
Saturdays.
right here.
Yeah,
Or right here. I mean, basically what they're doing is they're stopping people who are coming down Winslow Way and taking a right. And they say, you see them standing there saying, no, you have to go up there. And so you need to be in the left-hand lane and go up the highway and then figure out where to turn around, which doesn't work very well. You're not
no,
supposed to do that. So you're
no.
supposed to be approaching from high school or even beyond if the ferry traffic goes past there. So, and of course, the other thing I understand is that the Washington State ferries are not reliably running ferries out of Bremerton or Kingston. So that means that we're getting a whole bunch of ferry traffic coming down 305 any day of the week, in addition to just a tourist season.
In my humble opinion, one thing they could do is have clearer and more direct signage farther up the highway. Something that might say like, all non-ferry traffic must go into the left lane. But
Yeah,
I
and
don't-
I have seen there's some signage there about all ferry traffic must be in the right lane.
it does say that.
And I think there might be some signage about right turn to Winslow Way in the center lane or the left lane, but I don't know about that.
I
But
think
yes,
that's the hardest part.
I would say that more signage up there would help. And maybe even, although it takes some maintenance, some road markings that said something like non-ferry traffic or something.
Mm-hmm. When you go down this left lane, after you cross Winslow Way, it does say transit only on the highway. It's painted on the highway. So that gives you pause if you're not familiar.
Transit. Yeah.
I think the hardest thing is for people to learn that to turn right onto Winslow Way, they have to do so from the left lane. I've seen people just not do that.
Right. And of course, also the ferry line is supposed to be stopping, and they have some markings on the street. They're supposed to be stopping back from the intersection. So they're not right up against the intersection, but that ferry traffic often drives right up to the intersection, which means that they are right there when somebody's trying to take a right turn in front of them.
Mhm,
And that increases the likelihood of a collision.
mhm.
Indeed.
So, I guess the answer to this is to be continued. But it's an interesting, crazy effort, and I appreciate that it was broken before, but I would say it's not fixed yet. at least not entirely fixed, but I'm glad that Flory can get home.
Yeah, well, we got a sign out of it too that says Harborview Drive. When you come up the ferry, there's a big sign now that we never had before that says Harborview Drive. So
So people know where you are.
there you
Now
go.
you're totally legal, huh? Isn't
We're
that,
totally legal and we can give directions to people.
Great. Well, thank you, Flory and Sheila and Marcy, and we'll talk again soon. Have a lovely weekend and enjoy unofficial Bainbridge Bubble Day.
yeah, I just
Thank-
was there and it was wonderful.
You did?
Yep, it is.
Okay, I'll leave. You weren't here, but I'll leave you the way I started here.
Look at you go. Go,
Thank
man.
Okay, have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Reed.